You are on tips and streams with your host, Coca.
What's good, guys? Koken here, locked in and geared up to break down 4 NBA showdowns that are about to crank up the temperature. Strap in, because we're rolling straight into the action. The first prediction for today's NBA games is for the game between the Miami Heat and Boston Celtics. I'm looking at this matchup in Boston, and it screams schedule spot. Miami is walking into a tough runway here. They're coming off a game the night before in Brooklyn, and now they've got to hop on a plane and deal with a rested Celtics team that hasn't played since December 15th. That rest gap matters, especially when you're talking about legs for jump shots, closeouts, and all the little hustle plays that decide spreads. Miami's profile is basically 2 different teams, depending on the building. At home, they've been strong, but on the road, it's been a grind, and now you're layering in the back-to-back travel on top of that. Even if they bring the effort, fatigue shows up in the same places every time. Late rotations, short contests, and offense that gets stuck in the mud when the first option is taken away. The injury situation pushes me even harder toward Boston. Miami is missing key bodies, and there's also uncertainty around Norman Powell. When you're down multiple rotation pieces, you don't just lose scoring. You lose lineup flexibility, you lose defensive matchups, and you lose your ability to survive those cold stretches. Meanwhile, Boston is without Jason Tatum, and that's obviously a headline. But the Celtics still have enough shot creation and structure to win this kind of game at home. Jaylen Brown has been putting up big numbers, and Derek White has been a steady two-way engine. If Boston plays with pace and purpose, they can turn this into a game where Miami is constantly trying to plug leaks. What I also like here is the situational bounce-back angle. Boston has taken a couple of losses lately, but the broader form has still been solid, including consistent covers over their recent stretch. At home, they've been efficient, and the defense has been reliable enough to force uncomfortable possessions. Miami's recent results show a team that's been fighting uphill, and even in wins, they've had to work hard for clean looks. So here's where I land. I'm expecting Boston to control the rhythm, win the rebounding battles that matter, and get enough stops late to separate. My prediction is Boston to cover the 5.5-point spread at home. I'm laying the points with the Celtics in this spot. Today's second prediction is for the game between the Philadelphia 76ers and New York Knicks. Tonight at Madison Square Garden, I'm looking at this matchup through one lens: rhythm versus resistance. Philadelphia can score, New York can score, but the way the Knicks have been controlling games lately at home feels like a different level of organization. When a team is consistently winning in its own building and also cashing tickets there, I don't fight it without a strong reason. Let's start with the 76ers. They've been playing respectable ball overall, but they're still living on thin margins. Offensively, they're putting up around 117 a night on mid-40s shooting, and the engine is Tyrese Maxey's pace and pressure. When he's cooking, Philly can get downhill, force rotations, and turn the game into a scoring contest. If Joel Embiid is available, that changes the geometry completely, because now you've got a true interior anchor who can punish switches and create clean looks when the defense sends help. The problem is that if. With Embiid questionable and key pieces like Kelly Oubre Jr. out, the 76ers can drift into stretches where it's too much shot making, not enough shot quality. They do protect the rim well and block shots at an elite rate, but I've watched enough games to know blocks don't automatically equal stops if you're giving up second chances or living in scramble mode. Now the Knicks. This team is playing like it knows exactly who it is. The offense has been sharp, the spacing has been reliable, and the decision-making has been steady. They're averaging about 121 points on strong efficiency, and the defense has been consistently stingy, sitting in that low 112 range allowed. Jalen Brunson is the tone setter, and when he's orchestrating, the Knicks don't just score, they score with purpose. Karl Anthony Towns gives them a second high-level scoring option. Mikal Bridges adds that smooth two-way balance. And OG Anunoby brings the kind of defensive edge that turns good possessions into empty possessions for the other side. I also love that New York cleans up a key detail. They're one of the best teams in the league at limiting opponent offensive rebounds, and they force opponents into uncomfortable possessions without needing chaos. Here's the key swing factor. Context. New York is on the second night of a back-to-back after a tight win, and the injury report matters. If Towns, Josh Hart, or Mitchell Robinson can't go, the Knicks lose some muscle and some depth. But even with that, I'm still leaning Knicks because the Garden has been a real advantage, and the trend line in this building has been loud. New York has been covering spreads here at an absurd rate, while Philadelphia has been struggling badly on the road against teams that are winning consistently. That's not a vibe thing, that's a profile thing. So when I line it all up, I'm not trying to get cute. I respect the 76ers' ability to hang around, especially if Embiid suits up, but I trust the Knicks' structure, their home floor execution, and Brunson's late game control. My prediction is the Knicks to win and cover the 4-point line against the 76ers. I'm riding with New York in the Garden. The third prediction for today is for the game between the San Antonio Spurs and the Atlanta Hawks. Tonight in Atlanta, I'm looking at a matchup that feels like it could swing hard on energy, pace, and which team guards with real purpose when the legs get heavy. Both teams are on the second night of a back-to-back, but the way they got here matters. San Antonio just handled Washington in a blowout, and that kind of clean win usually helps you survive the travel. Atlanta, meanwhile, just got into a track meet with Charlotte and still walked away with a loss, which tells me their defense is still leaking even when the offense shows up. When I break down the Spurs, I see a team playing confident, modern basketball. They're putting up 119.7 points a night on efficient shooting, and the whole thing starts with Victor Wembanyama setting the tone on both ends. He's giving them elite production with real rim presence, and that changes what opponents even want to try in the paint. De'Aaron Fox adds that downhill pressure and keeps the tempo honest, and even when he has an off-shooting night, his speed still bends the floor. Add in Devin Vassell and the extra scoring pieces, and San Antonio can stack runs quickly, especially if their threes are falling at their usual rate. But the reason I'm not automatically riding with San Antonio here is the spot. It's the third game in 4 days, it's travel, and the Spurs have already had some heavy emotional minutes recently. Even if the body is fine, sometimes the mind shows up a half step late, and that's how you get clipped early on the road. There's also a very real in-game issue for San Antonio. They've been giving up a lot in third quarters, and that's exactly where a home team can flip a game with one good stretch. On the Hawks side, the first thing I notice is that their offense can look beautiful when the ball is popping. They lead the league in assists. They rank near the top in fast break scoring. And that style is tailor-made for a home underdog that wants to turn this into a pace game. Jalen Johnson has been playing like a problem, and when he's attacking downhill and finishing possessions with boards, Atlanta's offense becomes more than just junk shots. Nickeil Alexander-Walker has been scorching from deep lately, and if he's hitting early, it forces the Spurs to chase harder and opens lanes for everything else. Trae Young being back in the mix gives them more structure, more playmaking, and more late clock options, even if Atlanta is still figuring out the cleanest rhythm with him. The downside is obvious. Atlanta has been giving up too much. They're allowing 117.4 per game, and lately the defensive effort has looked like a step behind, especially when teams spread them out and make them guard the whole floor. They're also missing Kristaps Porzingis and Feli Dante, which takes away size and options up front. So for Atlanta to cover, I need them to win the possession battle with pace, playmaking, and shot making, and I need them to stay connected defensively just enough to avoid getting blitzed by Spurs spacing. And that's why I'm sticking with my forecast anyway. The trends point to the home side showing up in this matchup, and the short number tells me the market expects a tight game. So my play is simple and personal. My prediction is the Hawks to cover the 3-point spread at home. I'm taking Atlanta +3, expecting their pace and passing to keep this one in a 1 or 2 possession window all night. Today's last prediction is for the game between the Chicago Bulls and the Cleveland Cavaliers. This Bulls-Cavs rematch at Rocket Arena is one of those spots where the betting market wants me to believe Cleveland should roll, but the last game tells a different story, and the season-long profile backs it up. Chicago just popped Cleveland 127-111, and it wasn't some fluky buzzer-beater type win. The Bulls came out with real edge, won the early phases, and then kept turning the screws with tempo, ball movement, and pressure. What stood out to me most was how Chicago got quality looks without playing hero ball. Kobe White set the tone with 25 on efficient shooting, and Josh Giddey controlled the game with a triple-double that felt more like a quarterback performance than a box score chase. When Nikola Vucevic is giving you 20 and solid work on the glass, while also keeping the offense connected, that's when Chicago looks like a problem. And the depth mattered. 7 guys in double figures and a bench that actually swung the game instead of just surviving minutes. Now flip it to Cleveland. They've been in a funk too, and the issues show up in the same places over and over. Stretches of stagnant offense, too many empty trips, and not enough clean scoring options beyond Donovan Mitchell. Mitchell did his part with 32, and Jalen Tyson was a bright spot. But if your offense is basically Mitchell makes something happen for long stretches, you're living on tough shot making. And Chicago helped push Cleveland into mistakes. 20 turnovers is a loud number, and it fed the Bulls' confidence all night. Here's the key angle for me. Cleveland has a winning record, but they have not played like a trustworthy big favorite. In fact, this team has been priced like last season's version of the Cavs, and they haven't consistently delivered at that level. At home, they've won games, sure, but as a home favorite, they've been leaving too many back doors wide open. And that matters against a Bulls team that, even while slumping overall, has shown it can hang around when catching points. I'm also paying attention to availability. Cleveland is without key pieces like Max Struss, Sam Merrill, and Evan Mobley, and Mitchell being listed as questionable is the kind of thing that changes the texture of a spread. If Mitchell is limited at all, Cleveland can still win, but covering a big number becomes a different job. On the Chicago side, Ayo Dosunmu and Trey Jones being questionable matters, but I'm less worried about it from a spread perspective because the Bulls' path to staying close is more about effort, forcing turnovers, and getting balanced scoring than relying on one specific bench piece. Tactically, I expect Cleveland to come out with revenge energy, trying to clean up the sloppy possessions and get into their half-court sets with more purpose. But Chicago's pace creates variance, and variance is a friend of the underdog. If the Bulls can again generate extra possessions with deflections, steals, and transition chances, they don't need to be the better team for 48 minutes. They just need to keep the game inside striking distance. So yeah, Cleveland might still get the win at home. I'm not here to argue the Cavs can't bounce back. I'm saying the number is too heavy for the way this Cleveland team has been performing, especially with the injury cloud and how the first matchup played out. My prediction is simple. I'm taking the Bulls to cover the 8-point spread in Cleveland. I see Chicago keeping it gritty, keeping it close, and giving me that late game cushion I want when I'm riding with the dog.